Smart cities are rapidly becoming a reality, but are they emerging fast enough? That is the topic of today's edition of Inside AB. I'm Jeremy Lawrence and I'm joined here in the studio by Bernd de Boosman. Bernd, welcome. We have a McKinsey report in the magazine this week that talks about smart cities and how they're emerging. So tell us what the report said.
Well, in terms of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, a lot of things have happened, especially in the last few years in terms of smart city. For example, in Dubai, almost everything you can do through an app now in terms of government services. So Dubai, and then to a lesser extent Abu Dhabi, are leading the region in terms of the implementation of these sorts of technologies. And of course, there's things coming up, for example, the Hyperloop. There's been news this last week that construction is going to begin soon, and that's all part of the smart city ecosystem.
Okay.
But on a global scale, the Dubai and Abu Dhabi are still lagging behind some other cities around the world. For example, San Francisco, New York, Tokyo, Seoul, Shenzhen, of course. There's still some catching up to do, but things are moving quite rapidly here.
Okay, so we're high up there, but not as high as we perhaps want to be.
We're the highest in the region, not the highest globally.
Right. Okay, when this smart city becomes a reality though, what benefits will it bring to these cities?
Well, actually, I think that's the most interesting part, because it benefits us in ways we might not necessarily think of. For example, in terms of saving lives and crime reduction, a smart city could have as much as 40% less crime, which in a city like Dubai, where there's not much crime to begin with, and that's
no crime.
Yeah, that's very significant. There's also medical smart city applications. So the estimates that in a city of 5 million people, for example, 300 lives a year could be saved through these applications. In terms of diseases, the burden of disease could go down by as much as 15%. Also lower commute times, 15-30 minutes depending on the size of the city. But when you think of the economic impact of everyone being at work half an hour more, that's massive when you think about it, in the billions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars of impact.
So we're not talking about small incremental steps here. We're talking about really, really big impacts from smart cities in very measurable ways.
Yeah, and very tangible impacts. These aren't just small fractions of a percentage points. These are very significant.
Big numbers. How do we get there?
Well, the McKinsey report outlined a couple steps that they think could help move this along. For one is to plan with the smart city in mind. So for example, if you're planning a new development or you have a new asset coming up, whether it be a building, for example, if you plan the smart concepts into that from the beginning, it makes everything run much more smoother rather than have to retrofit a development with smart products. Also, the private sector has a huge role to play in this, because the government can't fund everything by itself. So McKinsey says that the private sector could fund as much as 60% of the initial investment of smart cities. And importantly, at the end of the day, everything still needs to revolve around people and how it benefits people. So for example, you could also use smart technology to gauge public opinion or public feedback on how things are working, what could be done better in terms of these smart applications. And in Dubai, we already kind of have that little buttons at the government offices, for example, with the smiley face. That's a smart city feature there.
Yeah, I always press the smiley face one.
Me too.
Okay, let's talk about security, because obviously when we talk about this, at the back of our minds, we're thinking about the cyber attacks.
Of course, and I've interviewed a lot of cybersecurity people this year, and it's logical that the more, they call it the threat surface, if everything is connected and everything is smart, there's more targets for a hacker, for example. That really requires the government and the private sector to come together to figure out ways to secure this and kind of think ahead of the hackers, and also be ready to respond. For example, if a smart city went down for even a short amount of time, the economic impact is quite significant. So the trick is to secure it beforehand and not be responsive.
So in summary, it sounds like we've got massive gains to be made, but we've got a lot of things to deal with along that road.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think everyone that is here is quite confident that that's the way things are going. Last week we had the Smart Dubai office, they've given us all sorts of information about their projects. So I think things are moving really quickly.
Great. Well, thank you for running us through that, Bernd. Very interesting report by McKinsey. You can check it out on arabianbusiness.com. In the meantime, please do subscribe to this YouTube channel, comment and share. Join us every weekday at 10 a.m. and we'll see you next time. Bye.